Mr. Chairman, at 7?
7 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Committee on Infrastructure, this being August 28, 2024, and this meeting is held this Wednesday in the Aldermanic Chamber, and the time start is 7 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Thibodeau?
Here.
Alderman Sullivan?
Here.
Alderman Clee is here. Alderman Dowd?
Present.
Alderman O'Brien?
Present.
You have 5 members here.
And also on the agenda is Mr. Tim Cummings, Administrative Service Director, for a presentation. Public comment?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Can you come to the mic at the podium, state your name and your address? And this section here is for stuff that is on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Ernest Duvarney Jr. I'm at 198 Knollwood Ave. I'm here in support of 2 ordinances. One is the 024-030 and the 024-31. The 30 is the stop signs, and especially Knollwood Ave, but there are numerous streets involved in what Bishop Girton drivers are too fast through. So that's why there's so many listed here, and it's all because of them. And parents, not just students. And the 31 is the speed of 25 miles an hour requested. That's simply the story. It's out of control. Something needs to be done. That's, I don't want to take any more time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Anybody else from the public? State your name and address, please.
My name is Maida K. Latvis. I live at 9 Manchester Street in Nashua, New Hampshire. And I'm here to support 024-026 to remove the no parking restrictions on the section of the east side of Manchester Street. I'm here tonight just to ask that you help me out to get my trash picked up. I've been at this residence for 34 years, maybe 35. And it's been an ongoing problem over the years. At one point, there wasn't any parking on my side of the street, so that was okay. And once they started putting parking at the bottom of my driveway and my neighbors, the trucks couldn't get in, the trash trucks couldn't get in to pick up our trash. So I have been calling the DPW for over 20 years, talking about this. I have talked to everybody in the city. And I had no idea what the process was, so I said, okay, just move the parking space down and give us a little extra room at the end of the driveway. And somebody that I spoke with said, no, it doesn't work like that. So you should contact your alderman, which I did. And I spoke to Trish Clee and said, I was a teacher. I don't want to lose any parking spaces. I went to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. I want to keep the parking across the street from my house or in front of my house. But it's a nuisance. And it wasn't really so bad when I was working, but now I'm retired. I take care of an elderly parent. My husband works from home, and we are in and out of that driveway all the time. And in order to get our trash picked up, my neighbor and our house have to put our trash barrels right in the path of our driveway. And even still, the DPW has said, can you just push them out a little further? Can you just push them out? Which would put them into the street, which is a problem as well. So I'm asking you, if you could just please let me have my trash picked up. That's it. Thanks.
Anybody else want to take advantage of the public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to communications. To the clerk.
From Wayne R. Husband, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineer, in regards to Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation O-24-024, authorizing stop signs at intersection of Bowers Street and Dearborn Street. From Wayne R. Husbands, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineering, in regards to Division of Public Works, supporting of pending legislation O-24-026, removing parking restrictions of a section of Manchester Street. From Wayne R. Husbands, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineering, Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation, O-24-027, no parking on west side of Zellwood Street. From Wayne R. Husband, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineer, in regards to Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation, O-24-029, no parking on sections of south side of Spitbrook Road. From Wayne R. Husbands, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineering, Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation, O-24-030, stop signs on Fairlane Avenue, Forest Park Drive, Knollwood Avenue, and Wildwood Lane. From Wayne R. Husband, P.E., Senior Traffic Engineer, Division of Public Works, support of pending legislation, O-24-031, establishing a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Fair Lane, Forest Park Drive, and Knollwood Avenue.
Okay, there being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place it on file.
For
Yes.
the record, you just state for the record that these were received after the agenda was prepared?
Yeah, there is only one. Without objections, we'll suspend the rules to allow communications that were received after the agenda was prepared. The only thing I have on my desk, Alderman Dowd, is to Alderman John Sullivan from Oak Hill Condominiums. And looks like Alderman Sullivan did some good work with those people there.
Yeah, I'm happy to explain once the ordinance comes up for review.
Okay.
Actually, the Wayne husband ones were all received after the agenda.
They were received afterwards? Okay, then we'll accept them in their entirety. Any objections? Seeing none, communications have been accepted. And now we'll have general infrastructure updates, and I'd like to reintroduce Mr. Tim Cummings, who will take us through this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I'm not sure what the pleasure may be. If you'd like, I have Director Sullivan, Director Hannum, Mr. Roach with me this evening. We can join you up in the horseshoe if you want to have a little bit more of an informal conversation, discussion, or we can do it here at the podium. I just wanted to get a sense of the group as to what you'd like. Not sure how long you want this to be.
Come up and join us.
Excellent, thank you.
Misery loves company.
All right, so again, Mr. Chairman, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services, and I'm here this evening as my colleagues get settled to provide a brief update relative to general infrastructure here in the city, both vertical and horizontal type construction. And so what you're gonna hear updates on is 14 Court Street, Arlington Street Community Center, Hunt Building renovation, downtown parking garages, 9 Riverside, Elm Street Middle School, Library Walk, Riverfront construction update, West Pearl Street demonstration project, Route 111 bridge update, Heritage Trail East update, Library Plaza update, Hydro improvements update, commuter rail and Milliard Quadrant 1 Bidder and NIMCO overall update. I will ask that folks hold questions until the end so we can get through our more formal comments. Each one of us have a few projects that we're going to speak on, and I ask that you write your questions down. We'll happy to go back to the slides and address any specific questions as they arise, but want to kind of get through the formal comments. And at the end, I'll wrap things up with telling you what we anticipate coming down the pike. So first up, I believe we have Amy DeRoche, who will talk a little bit about the project she's been working on.
Good evening, Amy DeRoche with Administrative Services. We will start with 14 Court Street. Currently, we are underway with a strategic plan for the development of the building for a business plan by Duncan Webb. The going to be put together potential sources of revenue and expenses for the building. And we just met with the architect that will be doing a code update for the building, and we just did a walkthrough on that yesterday.
Mr. Chairman, if you may recall, this was actually something Alderman Sullivan requested about a year and a half, 2 years ago when we created the Expendable Trust Fund. So we were just kind of following through on this initiative to make sure that we develop a strategic plan and have a better understanding as to how this asset can be used for the city.
Very good.
Next, we have Arlington Street Community Center. As of today, actually, we finished a lot of the improvements to the building. They came in and did a wonderful clean. This was spurred on by the actual exterior rear wall was collapsing. So that started off the project about a year or so ago, and it was able to be fixed by a grant that we received from the CDFA. We also have now installed, ADA accessible bathrooms. We've fixed the side entrance to be ADA compliant. I will not read you this entire list for the sake of expediency, but we have put in a multitude of improvements to this building, and it just got freshly painted. It all looks brand spanking brand new, and it also works with all of the infrastructure as well. So it's functional. They're going to be able to do wonderful things in this building moving forward with all of these updates.
And as Mr. Roach said, we received about a $1 million loan that is forgivable that made these various improvements possible through CDFA, and we anticipate having some sort of ribbon cutting grand opening over the next few weeks, and we will be looking to invite you all.
Next, we have the Hunt Memorial Building. We are in process, as you are aware, for our tower window repair, amongst other things. The architect has completed all of the design plans for the windows, and the structural plans have been completed to reinforce the pipe that is in the chimney stack. We've completed a couple minor repairs. We replaced our boiler expansion tank. The hardwood floors were refinished, and we now have heat in the main bathrooms, which is a wonderful thing. We have issued an RFP for the contractor, and that has been awarded to Martini Northern, so we're looking forward to moving that process along. We're just currently waiting for the final funds to hopefully begin the project in late fall.
Mr. Roach is being relatively kind. This project is about $500,000 short in monies that we need to figure out how to be able to proceed with this project. So I would anticipate this group to see a request at some point in the near future, so we can move forward with the current proposal as received. If we do not receive the funds, one, the grant we got would go away, and two, the bids we received or the prices that were quoted to us will be released, and we wouldn't be able to pursue the project as currently contemplated.
And lastly, for myself, we have the parking garages. They are currently under structural design. They're about 95% complete at this point. We just received a cost estimate late yesterday afternoon, so that is being reviewed by everyone involved. We're refining the scope to decide what else needs to be completed within the building, and we need to get this done quickly, as we need to make sure we hit the bonding process that will be coming through this fall, so we can start construction.
With the goal of trying to start construction as soon as possible. There are you may have saw a fence put up recently around the perimeter. There's some emergency repairs necessary so we can keep the garages usable. I can't stress enough the importance of trying to get this project underway. It is a goal of everyone's, I believe, to try to get a bond authorized this fall. So we hopefully will be before you with some legislation relatively shortly. I believe I am up next. So I'm going to just quickly talk to you about the 9 Riverside project, which most of you all know as it's part of the Joint Infrastructure and Police Commissioners. So this is more for the edification of the public. This project is underway. It is a training facility that the police department would like to use. It's almost completely designed. We have a little design left. We have cost estimating being done right now. The project was originally scoped out for about $3.5 million. I believe we will be on budget for that estimate. And we would be, again, looking to seek bond authorization this fall so we can proceed with the project. Just very quickly, the Elm Street Middle School, I just want folks to be aware of the fact that these 9 acres and the Elm Street Middle School is now under the purview of administrative services, and we have released an RFP seeking proposals to try to redevelop this 9 acres. We actually have a walkthrough and pre-proposal meeting with prospective developers tomorrow. That's a public meeting if anyone's interested. And we would love to try to get some proposals from developers to see what we can do with this 9-acre gem here in the heart of the city. So with that being said, I believe Director Hannum is up next, and I'll click through the slides if you just say next, and she will talk you through some of the various projects she's working on.
So I'll start with the library walk. This is a part of that branding and marketing campaign that we're doing with the consulting firm Civic Brand. We originally had some pretty grand plans to do murals and signage and all of these things, but a lot of that is contingent upon property owners who decided they didn't want to participate. So we are going to do minimal updates. We're going to do kind of the string lights across the entire 150 feet to make it a little bit safer at night with light. We've got little caps that go on the lights so that it doesn't disturb the residents above. And then we're going to redo that sign, the Library Walk sign, to look more like the Globe Lane one and give it a little light behind it. So that's part of that Civic Brand project, and it's a very minimal placemaking project. We can go to the next one. Riverfront construction, I'm going to do kind of a full presentation on this at the BOA on the 24th, but just wanted to give you a quick update that construction has been moving along. We found lots of old building ledges and things like that. So when we dig, we're finding 400 years worth of other construction. So it has been moving on slowly, but it's still creeping along very well. But it's going to be amazing at the end.
And the ADA ramp has been completed.
That's true, yes. Yes, so we actually have a ribbon cutting for that next week, September 5th at 2:30. You should be getting an invite this week here. So the ADA ramp is completed, and then the rest of it should be, we're looking at a July 2025 completion date.
Next.
Yep. So this is something that's speculative. We had talked about the West Pearl Street placemaking project and the reversal for a long time. This is years in the making. And so one of the things, since we didn't have so much engagement from the library walk, the placemaking group, marketing group, would like to do some, essentially take what we have planned for the construction, because we did not get bids that fit our budget. They were well over what we planned for. So I'm hoping to take, $100,000 that is not funded yet, but hopefully we'll be asking for soon, and do some of this exact planning as a demonstration project that can prove the value of the future permanent infrastructure project. So that's something that we would work with Civic Brand to do that placemaking activity.
And you may recall when we constructed the Performing Arts Center, we actually closed down one lane during construction, and that did not impede the flow of traffic by any means. So this would be further demonstration and proof of concept as to what we would ideally like to do when we do receive funding to permanently reconstruct the streetscaping at West Pearl Street, and under our capital improvements plan, I believe that's slated for additional funds in FY '26, maybe FY '27. So the thing to note here is there will be a request for additional funding to do this project, and may need some legislation relative to traffic flow, but we'll have more on that as time comes.
Yeah, and if you're kind of, just to show you, these are kind of pictures from other communities that have done very similar projects. And if you look, there's, concrete planters instead of the regular curbing. There's paint for some of it. They've kind of taken the planters and made them into curbage and things like that. So, that's the temporary nature of this placemaking demonstration. Next. I think there's one more.
And I think that one's at the end, if this would work. There
Oh,
we
yeah,
go.
okay. I'll do it later.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. I'm going to start with two projects that are actually directly under control by or being managed by the Division of Public Works and the Engineering Department. Here to present these on behalf of Dan Hudson and that team. You're likely familiar with both. The first is the rehab work being done to the Veterans Bridge and the Taylor Falls Bridge. These are the two bridges connecting the city of Nashua to the town of Hudson. This project has been a unique partnership between the two communities. As just a quick reminder, the schedule is shown here is that the Veterans Bridge work, which is underway currently, is scheduled to be wrapped up in November of 2024. And then we'll move on in the spring of 2025 to the Taylor Falls Bridge, and that rehab work will begin, with that work scheduled to wrap up at the end of 2025. We're hoping that the traffic impacts haven't been felt too badly by folks using that connection between the two communities, but the project has actually gone on without significant issue, and traffic has generally been acceptable for folks making that connection. This is, again, a public-private partnership, or rather a public partnership between the town of Hudson, the city of Nashua, and DOT, and the federal money that's coming down. But so far, this is a project that's only exceeded the budget by $30,000, which is remarkable based on its scale, and it's moving forward relatively on time as well. So we're happy about that. Moving forward to the next project, which is also a transportation project, and one that's very near and dear, I think, certainly to me, but hopefully to folks that live particularly on the east side. We'll wait for it to come up in just a second, is the continuation of the Heritage Rail Trail. For those that don't know, and I hope you do, and if you don't, shame on you. You should be taking a trip down. You should be taking a trip down the west side of the rail trail that extends through downtown Nashua from City Hall down out to the west. This is an extension of that project from Main Street out to Denton, which is generally near the Temple Street intersection, near the Henry Hanger building that's currently being renovated. This extension upgrades, not upgrades, but creates a multi-use trail that will have a variety of different pieces of infrastructure, but include ADA-compliant crossings at the streets, lighting, some landscaping, and some upgrades to other facilities along the way, including the Commercial Street Bridge that's noted here. This project has been challenging. There have been some right-of-way issues. It's a very narrow corridor that we're traveling in an urban area. So there's been some right-of-way redesign that's been necessary along the way, but we are moving forward. The mayor asks me weekly about this project, but preliminary design was recently completed, and construction is scheduled for 2026 through 2027. Personally, I'll just say I'm really excited about this project. It's a critical east-west connector between an area that I think we all know in the East Hollis Street corridor is a real opportunity for other transportation connections in the future. So I'm just excited for this pathway to be created and have that option, even for lunchtime walks sometimes. So excited about that moving forward. This is the first of two projects that, on my end, that I expect will be back for further conversation, certainly with this committee and even with the full Board of Aldermen. You're familiar with the Library Plaza project. This is an image from 2019 when the concept plans were first put together before the project was funded. And Director Cummings, if you wouldn't mind just advancing the slide. We then went back and actually had some respect for what things cost in light of the fact that we received a federal grant, and also had some real conversation about how to make the area in front of the library more usable, more accessible, and I think generally easier to maintain while still achieving the core functions and objectives of the project. And we worked directly with Director McCormick, who's here this evening. She's been a critical piece of moving this project forward to do some redesign work to reimagine some of those spaces that had first been contemplated in 2019. This is the concept plan that we're moving forward with now. I'll just quickly mention that we're in an interesting phase. We are dealing with our favorite favorite thing in the city of Nashua, and that is asbestos contamination on site. And so we're doing testing and exploration right now to determine the extent of that. But really, we're at the phase of now understanding how to manage it, because we do want to proceed with the project. It's a known issue here, and so we're working on bringing this plaza project forward in the timeliness of the federal grant in light of the environmental conditions. But Director McCormick reminds me often that we're always behind schedule, and she's right. We'd like to get this moving as quickly as possible, and hopefully we're able to go under construction next year. I want to quickly outline another opportunity that's come about, though, and I'll try to be quick here because my colleagues have done a good job of sticking to their time, and I'll do the same here. As everyone is aware, as part of the ad hoc committee discussion, there's been more detailed discussion about the way that the library renovation project fits into the city's long-term capital plan. This project is not included, the renovation project is not included in the current 5-year capital plan. Certainly, I think there's a recognition there needs to be additional assessment and space planning done and additional design work before the monies can be invested. But it started a conversation internally, at least, amongst the city team about what other options there might be to reinvigorate the library, perhaps even involving a new building or an alternative form of the current building. And we started to take a step back and look at this city-owned area, which is lightly shaded in white. There are a lot of city-owned parcels actually around the library. They all serve a unique function. Some provide parking, some provide green space, some are the library themselves, or the plaza area or Court Street. But we started to think that perhaps there might be an opportunity to do a couple, the kill two birds with one stone kind of thing. And I want to be clear that we are incredibly early in this conversation. However, what we've started to talk about is the idea that there might be an opportunity to revitalize the library while working with potentially a private developer, in fact, to also create some other uses in the area that would check other boxes when it comes to community values. And so again, I want to be clear, we're very early here. I don't want to get too excited. We want to temper expectations, but we have started to talk about the idea of, and Director Cummings has done these in the past and others have too, sort of a market testing request for proposals to see what public-private partnership options might be available for the site. I don't want to say that this will solve the library issues. I don't want to say it'll solve any other issues or community objectives we have for this area, but we are interested in coming back to the full board and bringing this sort of concept of exploration forward, and we expect to do that over the coming months because we recognize that the capital costs are significant and there are other community objectives that can be achieved in this area. And so I'll leave my comments there, but I just wanted to make the group aware of this evening because we think this might be a real opportunity moving forward.
What became clear during the ad hoc process was that we have more needs than we actually have resources for. So as Director Sullivan noted, it started an internal conversation among the mayor's senior staff about how do we try to accomplish some of these community-wide goals. And so we started to do some out-of-the-box, some innovative thinking. And that's how we arrived at this idea of maybe doing this, what I will use, quote-unquote, public-private partnership. And more detail is going to be necessary before we decide whether we actually want to do this or not. But I think it's a great idea for us to try to accomplish a lot of objectives that the city has, being realistic with the financial pressures that we also have.
This is the most exciting project for me. So I've been here for 3 years saying that nothing's happening with this project, so it's great to say that we finally have gotten both federal agency and weather cooperation over the last 12 months. The project has been under construction in earnest. This photo is the bad side of the project. Our cofferdam that we've created here, essentially this large earthen structure and sheet piling dam within the middle of the river, was overtopped 3 times over the last year by significant flood events based on the rainfall that we've received. Director McCormick has had a front row seat to the constant tragedy of this site outside of her window. But lo and behold, we're not in a drought condition, but we're close to, and so we've been able to proceed with the project. If you were to go to the site today, it looks significantly different than this. We have concrete work going on. The site is dry. And more importantly, the turbine is on the way from Eastern Europe to the United States of America, where it will join us here finally in the city of Nashua. We're really excited about that. We're now moving on to the next challenge, and that is that we actually have to hook that thing up. And that's actually quite complicated. It involves a lot of partnership between agencies and entities, and so we're working with Eversource and BAE to try and get that done, hopefully in the spring of 2025. And then, as you all know, and I couldn't resist my opportunity to pitch this, we'll be back to request additional funding for fish passage work, and that's that $7 million project that I've included in the capital plan, so we'll be back to talk about that in the future. And then finally, on my list, this is another one we'll be back for a more full conversation on in September, and I'll be brief here, but the board authorized a contract with a consultant known as AECom back in 2023 to continue work that had been done by New Hampshire Department of Transportation relative to the commuter rail extension project. That was based on the idea of what we refer to as an initial operating segment, which means an extension first from Lowell up to the city of Nashua. It's possible that Manchester could be connected in the future, but that's our focus right now. The first task that we undertook and was funded by this board, and we're very thankful for that, was to re-engage with entities and determine whether or not there was significance, or not significant, but whether or not this was a realistic project in the eyes of particularly the MBTA and Mass DOT. They're a critical project partner, and they had not been engaged in the state's efforts. I'm here to say today, again, I want to be careful about expectations, but those conversations have gone well. In fact, this is the #1 or the highest priority extension project for the MBTA, of course, should funds become available. And so we recognize that's a huge caveat, but we feel ready to come back to this committee and the Board of Aldermen with at least the first sort of go or no-go indication. And we believe that it is a go, and we'll be back to talk about that in more detail. And while you've approved the contract with AECom to continue the work, we have to find additional funding to do that. And so I anticipate coming back with Director Hannum and others to talk about the fact that we believe we're ready to proceed with sort of step 2 of this, which will be updating the financial plan, key project metrics, and identifying funding sources. But we're really excited at least about the indications that we've gotten from our agency conversations. Frankly, they were a bit surprising. And we're very happy to say that there's one other significant project development, and that is that a layover facility is no longer needed, which is was a major hurdle for the project. And we'll talk about that in more detail later.
All right, and the last project here, I kind of couched all of the projects happening in the mill yard into one grouping. So we've got NIMCO, where we've got the purchase and sale is completed. We're working on that master development agreement. And the developer has started working on the design and site layout. So we are coming up on kind of deadlines, so we're starting to push a little bit harder on the developer, but that is where we are at the moment. The phase 2 has been drafted and is being kind of bounced around at the moment to finalize. So we're moving forward there. The Pine Street Extension lot on the bottom there is that site has been given site control over to BIDA, and they are in the process of also doing a phase 2 environmental study where we just got the first draft available. And so we're looking at redeveloping that site. We are looking mostly at housing for that site, and so we will have to also replace the public parking that is in that area. So those are some issues. The only other kind of primary challenges that we have with that is access and utilities. So that's something that we're hoping to work with a future developer on to help them with those issues. And then the last one here is a continuation of the riverfront project into that quadrant 1, that little thumb around the river. So NIMCO has, the developer for NIMCO has offered that space in the back, you can see in the rendering there, as a public space. And so we're looking at what can we do with that space. We went back to the 2017 riverfront development concept there that I've screenshot there. And so we're kind of trying to figure out how to update that and figure out funding sources. And this is kind of the first conversation we're having about it. But we think that a possible TIF expansion could be a good option for funding that, as well as some grants, and trying to figure out, we've got 3 other quadrants that have not started construction. And so what are the priorities going forward? But this seems to be, we've got a partnership in one little piece of this quadrant, so that might be a good first start there. So that's where we're at with that project as well. So I think we're all you.
All right, so
Yeah.
It should go without saying, what you heard was an overall snippet of the various projects that we're working on. By no means is that an exhaustive list. There are certainly other projects, like the Walnut Street Oval, that we didn't touch upon tonight. What we wanted to do was to give you and the members of the public just a little sampling of all the various work that we have going on. I think it goes without saying, we have quite a lot, and it's pretty remarkable, all the good things that we're doing, and we just sometimes forget about that. So I want to kind of take a moment and acknowledge all the hard work that the various departments are putting into improving this great city. We have some projects coming down the pike that I wanted to kind of tease for you. By no means is it definitive that we will be doing these projects, but certainly projects that may be coming down the pike that you should be aware of. So a Spruce Street connector type project. We have a police parking lot upgrade necessary, a renovation of a fire station at Pine Hill Road, DPW garage, a fire training building yard relocation with DPW, a City Hall HVAC and elevator project, and some Greeley Park improvements. Obviously, all these are still subject to needing the necessary funding, but these are projects in various plans and part of the city's strategic goals. And so I thought it would be worth noting some of these because you may be hearing about them in the future. So, Mr. Chairman, with that being said, that wraps up the overall update this evening. Happy to take questions.
Any questions, Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you very much. I have 4 questions, if I may. But first, a comment. Excellent presentation. Excellent. Lots of pictures. Thank you. But it was concise, and there was a lot of protein there, so I really appreciate that. My first question is around the Hunt Building. You mentioned you were 500,000 short. Should we expect to see during the escrow season $500,000 going to Hunt?
If I can convince others within City Hall, yes. Yes, I would like to make that request.
Okay. No, I'll skip that one. Elm Street, you mentioned there's a public meeting tomorrow. Where and when?
I'm going to have to look at my schedule, but it is in room 208, and I believe it is at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and that will be a pre-proposal meeting, non-mandatory, so by no means, if you don't participate in this meeting, you could absolutely still submit a proposal, but it's an opportunity for interested parties to ask questions of the city in a formalized way where we can document it and make it equitable to everyone. It's also going to be an opportunity for prospective proposers to walk the site, as we are going to make the building available, so people can get a little bit of a look-see and decide if it's something that they would like to pursue.
Okay. Final question is on the NIMCO site. Who's the developer?
The developer is LMG.
LMG.
Yeah, Lansing, Melbourne. So they were the ones that also did the flats recently, the High
Right.
Street flats.
Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, Alderman Clegg.
Thank you. Well, one of my questions got answered, so I appreciate that. My other question is actually on the NIMCO. Ms. Chisholm was here last night about a grant that they received about the cleanup and so on for the mill yard, and NIMCO kind of came up. So one of my questions that I had asked her was, and I know you're probably in the negotiations, will the LNG and so on, will they be doing the cleanup, or are we going to be?
As of right now, they are doing the cleanup.
Okay.
We have not gotten to a place where they have asked us for anything yet.
Okay.
So that may come together, but as of right now, they are responsible for all of the development of the site.
Oh, good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yep.
And my
And we
next.
want to keep it that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good. That's exactly what I am hoping for.
We have lots of other sites that
That is
could
correct.
use
Right,
support.
exactly, exactly. You know,
Yes.
I heard the word asbestos when we were talking about the library, and I did ask her, could we use it elsewhere other than the mill yard? And she said, potentially if we worded properly, so yeah.
I would just add that we've received several inquiries, some from individuals in this room already for grant monies. And like any good federal grant that the city gets, we've already spent it 10 times over in
Exactly,
a variety of different
exactly,
sites. But
yeah.
we are really excited about that money.
Yes.
We will likely ambition to use it on either transformative redevelopment sites, but on city properties that really need that
Absolutely,
assistance.
absolutely. And my next one is, and I'm sure Ms. Hannum will back me on this, to Director Cummings, elevator. Could you put that one to the top of the list?
I get
Please.
stuck in that elevator at least once a week, so.
Yes. I like
Brian S.
position
McCarthy
myself,
elevator.
I position myself to a very specific spot and panic when someone else gets in the elevator. I almost welcome it, but panic at the same time. So yes, top of the list, please. Well, the HVAC, no, I do very much so care about that, but the elevator, top of the list, please. Thank you.
Yes. Dire need, yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, a few quick things. One, relative to the, brownfields money, in the renovation process, in the work at Dr. Crisp, putting in a security vestibule, we found that there's a abandoned fuel oil tank right next to the school. And we are removing it as part of the project because we checked with Risk and they didn't want to touch it. They said they didn't have the money for it or whatever. So, but I also found out that and we're doing this as soon as possible, but it might be possible to get that money reimbursed, and we're talking short money. It's not that expensive. We have to, why it was left there, nobody knows, but it has fuel in it, so we have to take the fuel out of it before it develops a leak, and once it gets in the ground, now you got a bigger problem. And then we'll remove the tank and get rid of it and re-landscape. That's all being done by Harvey Construction. You want to address that before I move on?
I would be happy to, Alderman Dowd. It's interesting, after the committee discussion on Monday evening, Mr. Sean Smith reached out to the team in charge of the Brownfields
Who
grant.
directed him to do that?
He actually told us who directed him to do that. And he has inquired, and I would say, you've identified it well. The challenge is timing, in that, it will be some time before we're able to disperse the funds. The EPA has a very specific process that they require you to go through. With the Brownfields Advisory Committee, you have to have a consultant on board. That all said, if it's possible to defer the expense in the project for some time, it may very well be a legitimate use of cleanup monies. I will say that I believe it's the city's intent, and this is yet to be confirmed, but to spread the wealth as much as possible with these cleanup monies and to try to put the dollars into as many projects as possible. So I think that's a great one. It has a direct connection to, obviously, school children. And so we certainly we did receive the request, and we think it's a good one. We just need to see what the timing is.
Yeah. And as long as we were there and could get it done more inexpensive than if you had to bring somebody in to do it, it made sense, and especially with school-age kids having a tank full of fuel next to two of their doors is not very good. The other thing is very good brief, everybody. That was fantastic, which reminded me I should probably give the full board an update on all of our school projects. I know the Joint Special gets inundated with all kinds of data, but I think the full board would like to know. McCarthy opened today. Everything went pretty well. Let's see. We already covered the library and that asbestos. The other question is, on Elm Street, I am getting, as Tim knows, getting calls. People are saying, is there any plan? Like, we know even with the people coming in tomorrow, that it's going to be 2 years before anybody touches that school. Are there any contingencies for using the Chestnut Street gym? And if so, how do people use it? Because they don't know. We know that they want to use the auditorium, the Keefe Auditorium. And I'm getting the indication from all the voicemails I'm getting that there isn't a process for them to, who do they have to contact when they schedule this stuff, and what's the interaction with the city? So that's a key point. And then, the other thing I was concerned about is there's nobody in the building. I thought the fire department was concerned about that, but there is no one in that building. Not that I want to advertise that, but, and I think there's still material in that building. I don't think we were able to give everything away, or I haven't been in a while. But, are you gonna offer that to the people that are gonna do the renovation, or is the city gonna sell that stuff, or what's the plan for, there should be some kind of plan with Elm Street. That's where we go from here.
Agreed, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Couple questions there and to unpack. First, yes, if someone wants to use the facility, though we're trying to keep it to a minimum, they could absolutely reach out to Diane Vino in admin services, or if they would like, Jennifer DeShays in the risk department. Those two individuals could help coordinate and schedule, if necessary, how that building could be used, and of course it will take some administrative support and some custodians in the building at the time, and we would need to plan accordingly. So that's first. Second, we technically don't have anyone in the building right now, but I'm pleased to report that there is a plan in the next few weeks to actually have a custodian in that building regularly, full-time. And that is the current plan to assuage any concerns and to make sure that we actually have a presence. There is a lot of material left over in the building. I'm not sure what the value is of what's been left because it's been picked over relatively well. But there is definitely some materials there that need to be disposed of, and we're currently assessing that, and the building is being walked through a couple times a week to try to understand how best we can dispose of the various materials that were left over. So that is a little bit more vague at this time, and we'll be working to get clarity on that as we get a better understanding as to what exactly was left behind, because there was a significant amount of material left behind that we weren't necessarily planning on.
Just to clarify one thing for anybody who wants to do an unauthorized visit, the security system is still in place. High definition cameras are in place. If you try to get in that building, those blue cars will be right there to visit with you. So, that's all I got.
Yes, Alderman Tebow.
Regarding the Hunt building, the 500K shortage, is that an added scope, a price increase, or unforeseen issues? Because we approved the money not too long ago, so I'm just curious.
I would say none of the above. What it actually was is the prices came in higher than what we anticipated. So it was just market-driven cost. So we had an anticipated cost estimate based on what the design and consultants had told us. That was pre it going out for an RFP. And we put it out to the market, and we were about $500,000 shy of what we were anticipating. Materials were much higher. Since that time, working with the construction manager that was selected, they've found some alternatives, and they have found material that would satisfy differing historic district requirements, but still also get us the functionality necessary and is at a cheaper price point. And so with the combination of some value engineering and some innovative construction techniques, I'm hoping that we'll be able to actually do the project and move it forward.
Thank you.
Further questions from members of the board? Seeing none. Okay. Director Cummings, I would like to thank you and your expert senior team for coming here this evening and giving us an update on many of these projects. We haven't heard of such for a while. And again, let me extend the invitation from the Committee on Infrastructure. Welcome back anytime to update the committee, so.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Okay, without further ado, and thank you. Moving right along,
Yeah, one more thing for you. I didn't finish.
we'll go to unfinished business.
Ordinance 024 dash,
No.
I'm sorry, unfinished business, there's none?
There's none.
None?
Okay, new business resolutions
There is none?
and new business ordinances.
There is none.
Do
I'm
you-
sorry, ordinance, I'm sorry, O-24 dash O. It's gonna be a fast meeting, yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Can't do it.
We're gonna make it, this is a real quick meeting, yes. O-24 dash O-24, authorizing stop signs at the intersection of Bauer Street and Dearborn Street. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend approval of O-24 dash O-24.
Final approval. Discussions, Alderman Senate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee for having me this evening to talk about this. This ordinance was brought forward on the back of a concern from a constituent who lives in this vicinity. For anybody who may be unfamiliar with the intersection of Dearborn and Bowers, Dearborn's about a block off of Main Street and runs behind and through a large portion of the Southern New Hampshire Medical Center facility, which basically takes up several city blocks of that area at this point. The intersection is a four-way crossing. Bowers, traveling eastbound off of Main Street, is one-way. It becomes two-way past this intersection. And currently, there are two stop signs on either end of Bowers intersecting Dearborn. And the concern brought to me from the constituent was vehicles traveling northbound on Dearborn, as if you're coming away from East Otterson, perhaps leaving the Shaw's supermarket there, that may be turning right to continue traveling on Bowers, are kind of in a spot there. There's a lot of dense parking here because this area encompasses both the medical center as well as a small residential block. And that sort of creates a blind spot trying to make that right turn, especially when there's no onus on the driver to make that stop. I brought this to engineering, bandied around a couple of ideas that we could use to alleviate this concern and add a little bit of safety to that intersection. There was a hesitance to designate any of that no parking because of the demand for parking in the area, especially during the workday with folks coming and going to the medical facilities there. But there was a lot of support for making that a four-way stop so that anybody who is traveling north-south on Dearborn and looking to turn onto that eastbound section of Bowers would have the opportunity to do that more safely. And so that is the legislation that we wrote up. This will become a four-way stop, which is consistent with the next intersection on Dearborn with Prospect Street. So it'll be very consistent for traffic that's already going through the neighborhood. And this also did receive support of DPW, as indicated in the letter received today from Wayne Husband.
Okay, very good. Any further questions, members of the board? Okay, I do have one. And conversations with the Southern New Hampshire Medical, they're okay with this? 'Cause
I haven't heard any opposition from them, no.
Okay, Director Cummings, are you aware? Because if you put on your thinking cap, remember we went through this at one time before. parking.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I am aware of some of the hesitance on the part of Southern Hampshire Medical for some of the changes that have been proposed in that neighborhood in the past, in particular, another block forward on Harbor Ave.
Right.
But if it please the committee, with a positive recommendation here tonight, I would be happy to initiate that conversation. And if there's any hesitance on their part, I'd be happy to bring that up at the full board and make whatever motions need to be to address that properly.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Okay. I mean, making a four-way stop, I don't think is going to really hurt the matter here. you
No,
know,
I think if anything, we would hear more opposition from them if, like I said, several ideas had been tossed out, and one of them was designating a section of that block with no parking.
Right.
I think we would have heard significant opposition to that, not just from them on behalf of their employees, but for their, the customer base as well, so.
Yeah, yeah, because they are one of our larger employee, you know, as far as the people got a job and stuff like that in the
And
city.
a wonderful neighborhood to have in Ward 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other further questions? Seeing none, call for a vote for final approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Clerk, when you're ready.
Sorry. O-24-026, removing the no parking restriction on a section of the east side of Manchester Street. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend approval. Sorry. And I'd like to speak to that if I may.
Yes, you may.
I'm going to first speak to the motion as it is written, and then I'd like to speak to about the potential amendments for this particular one. As it's written, it speaks to removing the no parking of that particular portion of Manchester Street. It's across from Mount Pleasant. On that particular portion of the east side of Manchester Street, across from Mount Pleasant, there are some allowed parking, and then there are some no parking portions on it. There's also a bus stop, a city bus stop. The problem, as you heard from Ms. Lotvis as she spoke, both 9 and 7, so if you'll indulge me, I'm going to bring it up on the GIS, if I can do this properly. You will see that the portion on Manchester Street that is hers. So here on Manchester Street and here on Manchester Street. So you'll see right here is a parking space. And right here is a parking space. So when she tries to put her trash out, she has to put her trash out. This is her driveway. And this is the driveway next to hers. She literally has to put her trash in her driveway because this is an allowed parking space. And this is an allowed parking space. So our city trash cannot pick up her parking. It cannot pick up her trash. So the idea was to remove this parking space and to remove this parking space so that this, which is this home here, would be able to put their trash here, and she would be able to put her trash here, and then right here is all no parking. All this is no parking. And we would allow for this to become parking, and these two spaces would become no parking. The problem is that there's a bus stop right here. So the bus stop will get moved to here, but our city ordinance says you have to have 40 feet so that means all of this here still has to be no parking. We're still going to remove all of this, So this here will still say parking is allowed, but the, there won't be any lines there. DPW will not put lines there because our ordinance says no parking within 40 feet. So our DPW knows not to put a line there. We don't have to put up a sign that says no parking. So as you see, it just won't be marked. We don't have to put up no parking signs. It will get marked accordingly. So I don't have, I can leave all this as no parking. This will get removed. So my amendment, I was going to suggest amending saying, let's put up a no parking sign here and put up a no parking sign here, but I don't think it's necessary. I think I can just say, let's remove all of the limitations of the no parking. Just leave leave it as written and let DPW put in the appropriate no parking. They already know that there should be no parking here. So they're going to get rid of this little white line. They're going to get rid of this little white line and not have a legal parking space. And what they're going to do is they're going to move I've already talked to them. They're going to go 5 to 6 feet from this driveway, and they're going to create a line here. And they're going to create a line here, and they're going to create a line here. So we're actually going to get rid of 2 parking spaces. And we're probably going to allow 3 more parking spaces. So that's in essence. So I'm not going to amend this. I'm going to leave this the way it is, and DPW knows how to put the markings in. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. I thought you said that DPW wasn't going to put in the lines.
They are. They're not going to put it, they're not going to, so Director Sullivan, right now, I think if I'm not mistaken, this is approximately where the current bus stop is. Is this correct, Director Sullivan? So right now, the bus stop is right here, okay? And as a result, there's no parking, honestly, all in through here, okay? We're going to move the bus stop down to here, which means legally, there can't be any parking probably to about here.
Okay.
So DPW will not put any lines there, but starting about there, DPW will start putting in lines. Does that make sense?
Yep, but will they put up a sign that says no parking at the 40
No, they
feet?
won't. They'll get rid of these lines. They'll just start putting lines from about here on. They'll get rid of these, oops, sorry. They'll get rid of the lines that are in front of her place right now.
Okay.
Those lines will go away. And DPW, what this does is this allows DPW to put the lines accordingly. I'm not going to be because DPW, it allows them to put the number of lines that they need to do this. Right now, this is Mount Pleasant School. This school, whether it's a school or it's not a school, will remain a building. It's a historic building. It is not going to be knocked down.
Okay.
So whether we sell it off, parking is still going to be needed. So whether we keep it a school or we don't, it's still going to be needed. As you can see here, there's these parking spaces, there's always going to be marked.
Okay.
So rather than us putting up no parking signs, the thing is, we don't want to have a physical no parking sign put up there. What you can't see is that this is actually raised. There's a wall. We don't want them to put a sign into the sidewalk because then they can't clean the sidewalk. We don't want them to put a sign onto these people's property because then they can't mow their lawn, they can't do this and so on. So I started kind of going back and forth with Public Works, and they know where to put the signs. They know the whole idea of this, and that's what you see in the letter, is that they're approving this. They understand that. As a matter of fact, they're so understanding about this, as you heard Ms. Lotvis, until this legislation gets actually taken care of, they're manually going and picking up her trash. They, both 7 and 9, they're going and picking up the trash. And I was completely unaware that this has been happening, and this has been happening for 20 years. One of the Board of Public Works, the Commissioner Pappas, was calling and getting her trash picked up, and no one was doing anything about it. They weren't changing legislation, they weren't doing anything about it. Previous aldermen didn't even know that this was happening. She's just been suffering. She was a teacher, so she was leaving in the morning and putting her trash in her driveway. So once she retired and she was putting her trash out because she wanted to come and go, she put it off to the side, and every morning one of the teachers was parking there. Now, I'm going to tell you that the person who lives here is not happy. He's very unhappy because he doesn't want any cars to park here. One of the reasons why the parking was not put here at one point was not just because of this bus stop, but this street here, Mount Pleasant, was a one-way going this way, and Mount Pleasant was a one-way going this way. You can see where this was a problem. They were both one-ways going into Manchester Street. Well, Mount Pleasant was then changed to going one-way that direction. When it was a one-way going this way, it became a site issue. So, yes, you don't want to have any cars parked here. Now that it's going this way, this is no longer a site issue. So we can park cars here. It's not a problem. It's a bus stop, and as long as we have 40 feet from this corner, it's not an issue. As a matter of fact, truthfully, I don't even see that there's a lot of use of that bus being used. I don't think there's a lot of people that get on and off that bus. I did speak to Director Sullivan on that. At one point, we even talked about moving that bus stop somewhere else. But for now, we're going to leave it where it is. Let's not rock the boat on that. That's too much change for now. So I think this is a really good change. I think we're actually going to get 1, maybe 2 more parking spaces out of this. Ms. Lotfus and her neighbor will get their trash picked up. I think it's a safety issue. The gentleman that lives in that house tried to tell me that the children were going to run across the street and get hit, but the truth is it's teachers that park there. The children, if parents are going to not, this is a walking school district, but if parents are going to drop their kids off, they're using these spots. These are time-limited spots. So that is not an issue. And the truth is, the truth is this is where the parents would be picking their kids up, and this is where the crosswalk is, just like there's a crosswalk over here. So I don't see this as being an issue. Children are not in any more danger than that. But I did say that I did promise him that I would make sure that his voice was heard. So are there any other questions that I can answer? Sure.
Hi, Alderman Tebow.
I apologize.
Just, mine's more of a comment, but habitual and people doing what people do.
Yes.
So if people have been parking in those spots for, I don't know if it's the same person, for 20 years, in essence, and all of a sudden just the line disappears, but they're used to parking there. So obviously, I'm assuming people are still gonna park there if there's no signage. And I'm assuming it probably more during the school year that there's this issue exists, right? Or is this all year round, or is this even through the summer? Do you know?
May I answer?
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask that they paint the red stripes like they did on Concord Street.
On the curbing?
No, on the road. So where that white space is, I will ask them. They won't have to keep it up, but what they do in the past is they put those red stripes to say no parking there. They don't have to put up a sign, and once they disappear, that's fine. But it'll get people to understand this as a no parking. Yeah, it just is a learning.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next ordinance.
O-24-027. I motion to recommend approval. I'm sorry, no parking on the west side of Zellwood Street. Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval.
Alderman Tebow, do you have a?
Yes, I'd like
anything
to
you would
speak on it
add
if I may.
this?
Yes, please. So a constituent reached out to me that lives on Zellwood. They have a child with special medical needs, and on occasion, they've had issue with emergency vehicles having trouble getting down that street because people are parking on both sides of that street. When I went out, my recommendation was to limit parking to one side or the other. I reached out to parking department and city engineer to get input on what my next steps would be. This is one of the first things that, when I got elected, so this is one of the first things I'd work with. So then they agreed about limiting the parking to one side or the other. They recommended interviewing the neighborhood, so I did that. I went out and interviewed the neighborhood, got the input from the neighbors. Majority were in agreement. Two are not happy with it at all. And then one of the two said that if it does happen, the west side made the most sense. So I gave that information to the city engineers, and this is what we came up with. So limit no parking on the west side, and parking will only be available on the east side of Zellwood.
Okay, further questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. To the clerk.
Just lost my spot here. O-24-29, no parking on the south side of sections of Spitbrook Road. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend approval.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes, thank you. Just want to speak to this. I put in front of everybody a packet of communication, just to give you an idea of timeline. I first heard from Ed Davis, who is the president of the Oak Hill Condominiums, which is just off of Spitbrook Road. And essentially, we had passed an ordinance putting no parking signs up in front of that section of Spitbrook. However, they're really close to the opening of Oak Hill condominium. So when you come out and you want to turn onto Spitbrook, regardless of the direction, if you go east or west, that's the direction, you can't see, especially if there's an event, because people park on the side of Spitbrook right up to the sign. I passed this along to DPW. Wayne, husband, went out and did a survey of it, and it is a line of sight issue. So that's why I attached to that letter Mr. Husband's recommendation to, so we're not adding any more, we're just moving the sign up to give those residents more line of sight when they pull out to avoid any traffic disturbances. So I would ask for the committee for passage of this.
Okay, further discussion, members of the committee. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
To Madam Clerk.
O-24-030, authorizing stop signs on Fairlane Avenue, Forest Park Drive, Knollwood Avenue, and Wildwood Lane. Mr. Chairman, I motion to recommend approval.
All right.
If I may.
Yes, you may.
So I received a phone call a few months back from the gentleman that spoke at the beginning of the meeting with concerns about speeding vehicles down Knollwood. So I went out and I did a survey of the neighborhood and met with them, and one of the ideas I had was to, the first idea I had was the Almont and Knollwood is currently a 2-stop intersection, and to convert that into a 4-stop intersection. And then I went back to that neighborhood to let them know what I was planning, and at that point, I had already reached out to city engineering, and they agreed with that, but I wanted to get the input from the neighborhood. So I walked the neighborhood, talked to everybody, and as I was talking to the people on the street, the majority of, I had one neighbor who was not in favor of it, everybody else was. They had started talking about the other neighboring areas, Forest Park, Fairlane Ave, Wildwood, so the scope changed. So what I did is I ended up walking those neighborhoods and noticed there's a lot of stop signs not in the area. So came up with an idea of adding some stop signs in certain spots after hearing what was, in the opinion of the neighborhood, students leaving Bishop Girton and trying to beat traffic lights and such. So they're going through the side streets, trying to beat the traffic lights on one road. So came up with this plan to add some stop signs to help control the situation. And then through those conversations, the request was made for a speed limit sign of 25 miles an hour because the students from Bishop Girton park on all those side streets. They don't park on the side streets, I apologize, because there's signage in there. They rent parking spots from a lot of the neighborhood houses and such, and then they have to walk to the school. So it is a walking area for students to get to school. So then the idea was brought up for the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit zone. Sorry, I'm mixing 30 and 31 together. So both of all that was given to city engineer and to the traffic. And I had their favorable response, and I'd like you to pass that.
Okay, further discussion by members of the committee. Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I have a hard time believing that the Catholic students would be speeding. I mean, being the product of Catholic school myself. But, hey, okay. To the clerk, please.
O-24-031, establishing a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on Fairline Avenue, Forest Park Drive, and Knollwood Avenue.
Alderman Theobald.
Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't do the motion, I apologize.
Okay.
I motion to recommend approval.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes, you may.
I spoke to that during the 030. Again, the speed limit sign was to help reduce the speed and the flow of traffic in that area, the speed of traffic, and to protect potential students walking to and from school.
Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have an ordinance in the city that an unposted street is automatically 25 miles?
That I do not know.
I think we do, but I mean, I think we should put a sign, it reminds people of it, but I thought we,
I believe it's 30, because in my
Oh.
ward, I've had to have it changed to 25, so
Okay,
I think
okay.
it's 30 by default.
okay. I think we should have it, any unposted should be 25. We should change that ordinance. Thank you.
Further discussion.
We should change it to 25.
No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Petitions.
There are none.
We'll leave what's tabled in committee right where it is. We know where it is. General discussion. Members of the committee? Public comment? I don't see anybody from the public here. Remarks by Alderman. Any Alderman? Again, Director Cummings, I'd like to thank you and your team for coming with that update. I thought that was very good, spot on, as agreed by several members of the committee on this presentation. Okay, seeing nothing else, Alderman Dowd, yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:18 PM.